I thought I was being a good husband by handling everything. The bills, the maintenance, our entire life. Until that night when my wife's eyes flashed with a fury I'd never seen before. "I don't need you making decisions for me, James. I'm not your property." Those words changed everything. So I did what any red-blooded American man would do. I backed off completely. Completely. I thought our marriage was solid as the buildings I engineered. I was dead wrong. And the cost of this lesson might be the one woman I can't live without. My name is James Cooper. I'm 42 years old, and I've been a structural engineer at Westfield Construction for almost 15 years now. I take pride in what I do. Designing buildings that will stand the test of time requires precision, attention to detail, and a methodical approach to problem solving. That mindset doesn't just disappear when I clock out. It follows me home, shapes how I handle everything from my finances to my marriage. Olivia and I met at a friend's gallery opening 7 years ago. She was showcasing some of her interior design work. These bold, creative spaces that somehow managed to be both artistic and functional. I was immediately drawn to her. She had this energy about her, this spontaneity that was completely foreign to my carefully planned life. We were married within a year. It was fast, but felt right. She was everything I wasn't: creative, free-spirited, impulsive. Where I saw spreadsheets and schedules, she saw possibilities and inspiration. I thought we balanced each other out perfectly. From day one, I naturally took charge of our shared responsibilities. It wasn't something we discussed. It just happened. Bills needed to be paid on time, so I set up automatic payments and reminders. The house needed maintenance, so I kept a detailed schedule of when to change air filters, check smoke detectors, service the HVAC system. When something broke, I either fixed it myself or had the right professional on speed dial. It wasn't that Olivia couldn't handle these things. She just approached life differently. Her mind was constantly buzzing with design concepts and client visions. She'd get so wrapped up in her projects that everything else faded into the background. I didn't mind picking up the slack. In fact, I liked feeling needed, like I was contributing something valuable to our partnership beyond just bringing home a paycheck. My college buddy Mark warned me once. We were having beers in my garage while I was changing the oil in Olivia's car. "You're setting a dangerous precedent, man," he said, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "You keep doing everything for her, and pretty soon she'll expect it. Then she'll resent you for it." I laughed it off. "That's ridiculous. I'm just being a good husband." But as months turned into years, I started noticing little things. She'd forget to pick up prescriptions, miss dentist appointments, leave her car running on fumes until the warning light came on. At first, I just quietly handled them, thinking I was being helpful. Then I started reminding her, gentle nudges that I thought were supportive. "Hey, did you remember call that client back? You mentioned it was important. The gallery event is tomorrow at 7, right? Do you want to pick up your dress from the dry cleaners? I noticed your laptop's acting up. Want me to take a look at it tonight?" Looking back, I can pinpoint exactly when her smile started getting tight around the edges, when her thanks began to sound more like "leave me alone." But at the time, I was blind to it all. I thought I was being the devoted husband, the solid foundation she could build her creative life upon. God, I was clueless. I first noticed something was off about 6 months ago. Olivia and I were having breakfast. Well, I was having breakfast. She was scrolling through Pinterest for inspiration while absently picking at a piece of toast. I was going through my mental checklist for the day. "Don't forget you have that client meeting at the Thompson house at 2. I reminded her, sipping my coffee. "And the electrician is coming to fix the kitchen pendant lights around 4. I'd go with you, but I've got that structural assessment for the riverfront project." She didn't look up from her phone, but I caught the slight tightening of her jaw. "I've got it under control, James." "I know you do," I said quickly. "Just thought I'd remind you, since you mentioned being in the zone with the Henderson project yesterday. Didn't want it to slip your mind." That's when she put her phone down and gave me a look that made my stomach drop. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something worse. Disappointment mixed with irritation. "Do you think I'm incapable of managing my own schedule?" Her voice was quiet, controlled, but with an edge I rarely heard. "What? No, of course not. I was just trying to help. By treating me like I'm your forgetful child instead of your wife." She picked up her mug, staring into it like it contained answers to questions I didn't know she was asking. "This is the 3rd time this week you've reminded me about something." I was thrown off balance. In my mind, I'd just been doing what I always did, keeping our lives running smoothly. It never occurred to me that my helpful reminders might feel like something else entirely to her. I didn't mean to sound condescending. I said carefully, "Force of habit, I guess. At work, I'm responsible for making sure nothing falls through the cracks. I'm not one of your job sites, James." She stood up, picking up her plate. "And I'm not one of your subordinates. I've been managing my own business for years. Somehow, I muddled through before you came along." She was really ticked off, and I felt like I'd shown up to a gunfight with a butter knife. Where's all this coming from? Before I could respond, her phone buzzed with a text. "That's Megan," she said, referring to her assistant. "I've got to head out. The fabric samples for the Donaldson project arrived early." "Olivia, can we talk about this later? I feel like we're—" "Sure, whatever." She grabbed her portfolio and car keys. "I'll be home late. Don't wait up." The door closed behind her with a bit more force than necessary, leaving me sitting there, completely blindsided. What the hell just happened? Throughout the day, I replayed the conversation in my head. Was I really being condescending? I didn't think so. I was just being thorough, making sure nothing important got missed. That was my love language, taking care of details so she didn't have to worry about them. But maybe I'd gone overboard. The more I thought about it, the more examples came to mind. Texting her reminders about appointments. Double-checking her calendar against mine to make sure we didn't have scheduling conflicts. Taking her car for oil changes without being asked because I knew she'd forget until the dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. By the time I got home that evening, I convinced myself I needed to back off a bit. Give her some space to handle things her own way, even if it wasn't as efficient as mine. It was a hard pill to swallow, the idea that my help might not be as helpful as I thought. But that resolution lasted about as long as it took me to walk through the front door and find a notice from the power company sitting on the counter. "Final warning before disconnection." I stared at it, the words blurring slightly. This was exactly the kind of thing I usually handled. The kind of thing I try to prevent by setting up autopay on all our utilities. When Olivia got home around 9, I was sitting in the living room, the notice in my hand, feeling both vindicated and conflicted. "Hey," she said, dropping her bags by the door. She looked tired but satisfied, the way she always did after a productive day with clients. "Sorry about this morning. I was stressed about the Henderson deadline." I held up the notice. "The power bill hasn't been paid for 2 months." "The power bill?" Olivia dropped her bag on the counter. "That's what you're waiting up to ambush me about." "I'm not ambushing you," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'm just concerned. They're threatening to disconnect service." She snatched the notice from my hand. "I thought you set up autopay." "I did, but the card expired last month, and when I asked if you'd updated it—" "You know what? Just stop." Olivia held up her hand. "This is exactly what I was talking about this morning. You act like I can't handle basic adult responsibilities." I felt my patience wearing thin. The evidence suggests otherwise. Wrong thing to say. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "So now I'm what? Incompetent? Irresponsible? Is that how you see me?" "That's not what I meant." I stood up, trying to defuse the situation. "Look, we're both tired. Let's talk tomorrow." "No, let's talk now." She crossed her arms. "For years, I've let you take charge of everything. The bills, the maintenance, the scheduling. And you know why? Because it made you happy. You got to be the responsible one, the one who kept everything running. I was trying to help. You were trying to control me." Her voice rose. "Every reminder, every suggestion, every time you step in to fix something, it's all about control." "That's ridiculous," I scoffed. "I've been carrying this household because you can't be bothered to remember basic responsibilities." I knew immediately I'd crossed the line. The hurt in her eyes cut deeper than any anger. "I don't need you making decisions for me, James. I'm not your property. I'm your wife, your equal, and I'm done being treated like a child." The silence that followed was deafening. All the frustration drained out of me, replaced by a hollow feeling in my chest. "Fine," I said quietly. "You want independence? It's yours. Handle your own affairs. I'm done reminding you, checking up on you, or fixing your mistakes." "Good." She tossed the power notice on the counter. "That's exactly what I want." I nodded stiffly. "Just don't come running to me when things fall apart." "Trust me, I won't." She turned and walked away, disappearing in her home office. I stood there, feeling like something fundamental had just broken between us. If she didn't want my help, she wouldn't get it. I was done being the bad guy for trying to keep our lives on track. The next morning, I left for work before Olivia was up. No more reminders about upcoming deadlines. No suggestions about her schedule. It felt strange, like I was deliberately ignoring a burning building. But she'd made her feelings crystal clear. My help wasn't welcome anymore. At the construction site, my colleague Mike noticed something was off. "You look like you got hit by a cement mixer," he said, handing me a coffee. "Trouble in paradise?" "Just a fight with Olivia." I adjusted my hard hat, squinting at the half-finished structure before us. "She thinks I'm too controlling." Mike snorted. "All wives say that, man. They want independence until the toilet breaks or the car won't start. Then suddenly Mr. Control Freak becomes Mr. Fix-It." I wasn't so sure. The hurt in Olivia's eyes had seemed genuine. Maybe I'd been micromanaging her. "So what's your play?" Mike asked, checking the blueprints. "I'm backing off. Completely. She wants to handle her own affairs. Fine by me." "Cold turkey, huh?" Mike raised an eyebrow. "Bold strategy." For the next week, I kept my promise. When I noticed Olivia's design supplies scattered across the dining table, something that would normally prompt a suggestion about storage options, I walked right past. When her car's check engine light came on, I said nothing. When she mentioned an upcoming client presentation, I didn't ask if she'd prepare her portfolio. It wasn't easy. Every instinct screamed to step in, to take charge, to make sure things ran smoothly. But I resisted. At first, Olivia seemed pleased with my newfound restraint. The tension between us eased slightly. She even thanked me one evening. "I appreciate you giving me space," she said cautiously over dinner. "It means a lot." I nodded, resisting the urge to point out that her schedule for tomorrow conflicted with a dental appointment she'd made months ago. Just respecting her wishes. For a moment, I thought maybe this new approach could work. Maybe we needed this reset to find a healthier balance. Then came the Henderson project disaster. Olivia had been working on this upscale renovation for months. The clients were demanding, with expensive taste and impossible deadlines. Without my usual check-ins, I had no idea how far behind schedule she'd fallen until I heard her frantic phone call with her assistant. "What do you mean they're delivering tomorrow? The space isn't ready. The contractors haven't even finished the..." She noticed me pretending not to listen and lowered her voice, disappearing into her office. I could have offered help. Before I would have. Instead, I sipped my coffee and opened the newspaper, ignoring the knot of concern in my stomach. The Henderson disaster unfolded like a slow-motion car wreck. I watched from the sidelines as Olivia scrambled to salvage what she could, making frantic calls to contractors and suppliers. Part of me, the fixer part, was itching to jump in with solutions. But every time our eyes met, I remembered her words. "I'm not your property." So I stayed in my lane. When she rushed out the door at 6 a.m. with her portfolio and 3 sample boards, I didn't remind her that she'd left her phone charging on the kitchen counter. When she called from her assistant's phone 2 hours later, I simply said, "On the counter," and hung up. That evening, she stumbled through the door, looking like she'd been through a war zone. Her normally perfect hair was disheveled, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. "Bad day?" I asked, casually flipping through a construction magazine. "They fired me." Her voice was hollow as she collapsed onto the sofa. "The Hendersons. They're going with another designer." Despite everything, my heart sank for her. What happened? Everything that could go wrong did. She kicked off her heels. The tile delivery was incomplete. The custom cabinets were the wrong finish. And to top it all off, I completely blanked on the final budget presentation because I left my notes at home. She laughed bitterly. Mrs. Henderson said I was disappointingly unprofessional. The old me would have rushed to console her, to help her figure out next steps. The new me just nodded sympathetically. "That's rough." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "That's it. That's rough." I shrugged. "What do you want me to say? You made it clear you don't want my input. So this is payback." She sat up straighter. "I asked for a little independence, and you completely check out." "I'm respecting your wishes," I replied evenly. "You want to handle things yourself. This is me letting you." There's a difference between not micromanaging me and not caring at all. I set down my magazine. "Is there?" Because when I showed concern about the power bill, you accused me of treating you like property. We stared at each other across what felt like a widening chasm. I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she realized this new dynamic wasn't quite what she'd expected. Finally, she stood up. "I need a shower. And wine. Lots of wine." As she walked away, I fought the urge to tell her that we were out of her favorite Chardonnay. Let her discover that for herself. Later that night, I found her at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers, client contracts, invoices, her appointment calendar. She looked up when I entered, exhaustion written across her face. "The Hendersons were 20% of my income," she said quietly. "And they've already told the Wilsons and Montgomerys about what happened." High-end design was a small world. Word traveled fast. "You'll bounce back," I offered, the closest I'd come to encouragement in days. She nodded absently, returning to her papers. As I headed upstairs, I heard a soft curse followed by the sound of paper scattering. Despite everything, I almost turned back. Almost. The Henderson fallout was just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Olivia's carefully constructed professional life start to unravel. 3 more clients called to postpone their projects. Industry code for "we're going with someone else." Her assistant Megan quit, claiming the work environment had become too chaotic. Supply orders arrived late or incorrect because Olivia kept missing confirmation deadlines. It was like watching someone trying to juggle while riding a unicycle. Impressive determination, but painful to witness. One evening, I came home to find her surrounded by fabric samples, tears of frustration streaming down her face as she tried to match swatches that had lost their labels. "Need help?" I offered, the words slipping out before I could stop them. She looked up, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. "What I need is a time machine. I've spent 3 hours trying to recreate an order that the supplier lost because I forgot to confirm it." She tossed a sample aside. "But sure, jump in now that everything's already foobar." I hesitated, then walked past her to the kitchen. This was her mess to clean up. Later, as we ate takeout in silence, my phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Congrats on the West Side project. Cooper does it again." I'd landed a major contract at work, something I would normally have celebrated with Olivia. Now, I simply put my phone away without mentioning it. "Good news?" she asked, noticing my brief smile. "Just work stuff," I replied vaguely. Her eyes narrowed. "We used to share work stuff. We used to share a lot of things." I stabbed at my low mane. Things change. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, she set down her fork. "What happened to us, James? When did we become strangers?" The question caught me off guard. "We're not strangers. We're just respecting boundaries." She laughed bitterly. "Is that what this is? Because it feels like punishment." "I'm giving you exactly what you asked for," I reminded her. "Independence. Space to handle things your way. I asked you not to micromanage me, not to abandon me completely." Her voice rose. "There's a difference between treating someone like property and being a partner. And where exactly is that line?" I challenged. "Because every time I try to help, you acted like I was trying to control you." She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. For the first time in weeks, I saw something besides frustration in her eyes: uncertainty. The next morning, I found a certified letter on her doorstep. Olivia had missed a tax filing deadline for her business. The penalty was substantial. I left the unopened letter on her desk and headed to work. By the time I returned that evening, the apartment was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. Olivia sat on the couch, still in her work clothes, staring at nothing in particular. "I might lose my business," she said without preamble. "The tax penalty, combined with the client losses. I don't know if I can recover." I sat across from her, maintaining my emotional distance despite the urge to comfort her. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Her voice was small, defeated in a way I'd never heard before. "I really don't know." For the first time, I wondered if I'd taken this lesson too far. "You look like hell," Mike commented as we reviewed blueprints. "Still fighting with a wife?" I rubbed my eyes, exhausted after another sleepless night. "It's complicated. Always is." He leaned against a trailer wall. "You still giving her the cold shoulder?" "I'm not giving her anything. That's the point." I tossed my pencil down. She wanted independence. She got it. Mike shook his head. "You're being a jackass, you know that." "Excuse me." "She asked you to stop micromanaging her, not to check out completely." He crossed his arms. "There's a difference between treating your wife with respect and abandoning her." His words hit too close to Olivia's accusation. "I'm not abandoning her," I protested. "I'm just letting her handle things her way, while watching her crash and burn." Mike's voice hardened. "That's not love, man. That's pride." I wanted to argue, but something in his words resonated uncomfortably. Was this really about respecting Olivia's wishes? Or was I just trying to prove a point? That night, I caught Olivia hunched over spreadsheets at 2 a.m., calculator in hand, trying to figure out how to keep her business afloat. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her normally immaculate appearance had given way to unwashed hair and wrinkled clothes. I made 2 cups of coffee and set one beside her. She looked up, surprised. "Thanks. How bad is it?" I asked, genuinely concerned. "Bad." She pushed her hair back. "I might have to sell the studio space, work from home until I rebuild my client list." For the first time in weeks, we were having a real conversation instead of trading barbs. It felt like a fragile truce. "I'm sorry about the Henderson account," I said carefully. "It's not your fault. You didn't sabotage me." She sighed. "I did that all on my own." "You made mistakes," I acknowledged. "Everyone does." She looked at me with tired eyes. "Is that what this has been about? Teaching me that I can't manage without you?" The question stung with its accuracy. "Maybe at first," I admitted. "But that was wrong. We both screwed up." She closed her laptop. "I pushed you away because I felt controlled. You withdrew completely to prove a point. So where does that leave us?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But I'm too exhausted to keep fighting." As she shuffled to bed, I stayed at the table, staring into my coffee. Mike was right. I've been a jackass. This wasn't about helping Olivia learn independence. It was about my wounded pride, my need to be right, and it was destroying us both. Olivia was gone when I woke up the next morning. A note on the fridge simply read, "Meeting with bank. Back later." I knew what that meant. She was trying to secure a loan to keep her business afloat. My first instinct was to call my financial advisor for advice, maybe pull some strings with clients who might need design work. But I hesitated, unsure if my help would still be viewed as control. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a day off work. I spent the morning cleaning the apartment, tackling the clutter that had accumulated during our Cold War. Then I went to her studio. The space that had once buzzed with creative energy now felt abandoned. Sample books gathered dust. Her design board, usually overflowing with inspiration, was half empty. On her desk sat a stack of unopened bills and a notice of late rent. This wasn't what I wanted. I never meant to contribute to the collapse of something she'd worked so hard to build. I was loading her supplies into boxes, thinking she might need them at home if she lost the studio, when I heard the door open. Olivia stood there, looking confused and slightly defensive. "What are you doing here?" "Helping," I said simply. "Or trying to." Her brow furrowed. "Why now?" It was a fair question. "Because I've been an ass," I admitted. "This wasn't about respecting your independence. It was about proving a point." She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. I wasn't much better. "How to go with the bank?" I asked. "They turned me down." Her voice was steady, but I could see the defeat in her eyes. "Credit score's too low after the tax penalty." I nodded, absorbing this. "What's your plan?" "Close the studio. Work from home. Start over, basically." She shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant despite the pain I knew she was feeling. "Can I make a suggestion?" I asked carefully. When she nodded, I continued, "Don't close yet. Let's look at all the options first." You want to help now?" "I've always wanted to help Olivia. I just did it wrong." I set down the box I was holding. "I treated you like one of my projects, something to be managed and optimized. That was wrong." For a long moment, she just looked at me. Then she said quietly, "I didn't exactly handle things well either. I wanted independence, but wasn't prepared for the responsibility that came with it." It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a start. The first honest conversation we'd had in weeks without anger or accusations. "Can we start over?" I asked. "Not with me taking charge or you struggling alone, but as partners." She walked over and picked up a design board. "Partners. I'd like that." Then she added, with the hint of a smile, "As long as you promise not to organize my sample books by color again." "Deal." The next few weeks were an exercise in rediscovering each other. We established what Olivia jokingly called the New World Order, a conscious effort to redefine our roles without falling back in old patterns. I helped her create a business recovery plan, offering suggestions rather than directives. "Have you considered reaching out to the Petersons?" I asked one evening. "They mentioned wanting to renovate their lake house." "That's actually not a bad idea," she admitted, making a note. "But I don't want to seem desperate." It's not desperate to follow up with potential clients, I pointed out. It's good business. She nodded, considering. I'll give them a call tomorrow. This was new territory for us. Me offering advice without insisting, her considering it without defensiveness. Small steps, but significant ones. For her part, Olivia started taking more initiative with household management. She set up her own reminders for bills and appointments. She asked questions about our finances instead of leaving everything to me. When something needed fixing, she either handled it herself or explicitly asked for my help. The kitchen faucet is leaking, she said one Saturday. Want to take a look? Or should I call a plumber? I'll check it out, I offered. But I'm not sure I can fix it. Plumbing's not really my thing. Mine either. She smiled. Let's look at it together. Maybe between the two of us, we can figure it out. We couldn't, as it turned out, but the attempt was what mattered. Working as a team instead of dividing responsibilities into separate domains. The road wasn't always smooth. Old habits died hard. Sometimes I catch myself about to issue a reminder or suggestion and have to pause, reconsidering my approach. Sometimes she'd bristle at a perfectly innocent question, anticipating control where none was intended. Sorry, she'd say, catching herself. Knee-jerk reaction. One evening, as we sat on the balcony sharing a bottle of wine, Olivia looked at me thoughtfully. You know what I realized? I never really wanted to handle everything alone. I just wanted to be treated like a capable adult. And I never wanted to control you, I admitted. I just wanted to feel valued for taking care of things. She reached for my hand. We were both right, and we were both wrong. I squeezed her fingers. Sounds like a typical marriage. Is that what we have now? A typical marriage. I shook my head. No, we have something better. We actually talk to each other now. 6 months later, Olivia and I found ourselves at another crossroads. Her business had recovered somewhat. Not back to its peak, but stable enough for her to keep the studio. My work at Westfield had ramped up with 2 major projects demanding long hours. The potential for old patterns to resurface was strong. I have to go to Chicago next week, I told her over dinner. The lakefront project needs on-site supervision. For how long? She asked, setting down her fork. At least 2 weeks, possibly 3. I watched her face carefully, trying to gauge her reaction. In the past, I would have automatically stepped in to manage everything during my absence, stocking the refrigerator, setting up automatic payments, preparing detailed instructions for any potential issues. Now I waited. I'll miss you, she said simply. Then with a small smile, but we'll be fine. I can handle things here. I know you can. And I meant it. But is there anything you'd like me to help with before I go? She considered this. Could you show me how to reset the router if the internet goes down again? Last time it was a nightmare. Absolutely. And maybe we should create a shared document with all the household account passwords, just in case you need them. Good idea. She reached for her wine glass. See how easy that was? Me asking for specific help, you offering it without assuming I need a complete life manual. I laughed. We've come a long way. That night, as we prepared for bed, Olivia wrapped her arms around me. Remember when I said I wasn't your property? I stiffened slightly. Hard to forget. I should have said it differently. She looked up at me. I should have said I'm your partner. Not someone to manage, but someone to collaborate with. I like that definition much better. I kissed her forehead. If you'd kept pushing, we might have broken beyond repair, she admitted. But when you backed off, even though you did it to prove a point at first, it forced us both to reconsider everything. We needed the reset, I agreed. Though I could have done without the power shutoff and the Henderson disaster. Battle scars. She shrugged. They remind us what we fought for. On my last night before Chicago, we sat on the balcony watching the sunset. Olivia's phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. James, Chicago tomorrow, 8 a.m. flight. You set a reminder for my trip? I asked, surprised. Partner, remember? She smiled. Your important stuff is my important stuff too. Looking at her in the fading light, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete trust. Not control, not responsibility, just partnership in its purest form. I love you, I said simply. I know. She squeezed my hand. And not because you manage my life, but because you chose to stop when I needed you to.